Welcome to World War II Online Tutorials, level bombing with the JU88. So I'm going to set up a mission. However, I'm going to go to the training server rather than doing the main campaign server. What I would do is I would log in just like I'm logging into the game, but then I'm going to select training server and go there. The reason being is that while I'm in the training server, I don't have to worry about people coming along shooting me down. I can set up a mission, take as much time as I want, practice doing as much as I want, and I'm not wasting equipment. So once I've logged in, I'll select whatever brigade I'm going to fly out of and select that as the home field, and then I'll select my target. Now, if I'm bombing factories, then I'm going to select a factory. I'm going to zoom in as tight as I can. All factories are the same size. If you select this middle building right at the tip there, looks like a long battery, select that and put your waypoint there, then that will be the very center of the square for that factory. And that way, when you're doing your bombing run, if you're off a little bit as you get closer to the target, then you have a little bit more leeway. Also, the tools in the wiki, you can go in and download the altitude of the cities, or most of the cities, and then that way, when you set your bomb site, you can subtract out that city's altitude from your bomb site, from what the altitude you're flying, so that technically you're always bombing at sea level. Now, cities that are only between 1 and 3 meters above sea level is not a problem. You don't have to worry about those. But you'll find some, like Hyoslvr, for example, is 162 meters above sea level. So you definitely have to be able to subtract that from your altitude that you're flying at, so that when you bomb, the site thinks you're bombing at sea level. So way up in the northern end of the map, you have a couple of cities there with airfields at each of them and a factory at each of them. So you can work practicing bouncing back and forth, going from east to west and then back from west to east. Practice bombing, and that way you can drop just a couple bombs each time to see how you do and setting up. That way you don't have to keep respawning and getting to altitude over and over again. You can do several runs and several drops all in one mission. The idea being is that you practice getting this marker with the little green arrow lined up with the little white dot so that you're flying directly to the factory as close as you can. And you can see sometimes it takes a little while to get it adjusted. Then you've got to be able to adjust the plane and maintain your level attitude. If you're not keeping level, or if you're turning, then you're going to have some problems in hitting your target. Also, you have to practice setting up your bomb site according to what your instruments are reading. Now, from the pilot's position, you can read, but also the bombardier, looking at an angle with zoomed in, can also read. So essentially, you want to double check your airspeed, make sure that you have it set. You're going to be using the indicated airspeed, and you're going to use the altitude that your plane is set at minus the altitude of the city. Now, this one city that's I'm going to be bombing is right at pretty much sea level, so I don't have to worry about adjusting it. That's one of the reasons why I chose it. Also, the city that's more inland is only a few meters above sea level, so again, I don't have to worry too much about doing adjustments, subtracting from the bomb site. Also, you want to make sure that you maintain a constant speed. And the reason why I keep constantly going back and forth is that as you set your waypoint and line up on it from a long distance away, that's only so accurate because of the distance of miles and the degree of arc. You're going to have to do adjustments. So that's why you got to keep checking. Make sure that you are going to be on that mark when you get to the target. So it's not just set and forget. You got to keep checking over and over. And the reason why I keep zooming in is that it's more accurate when you're zoomed all the way in than you are if you're out at the 25 or the 10 kilometer ring. That's just a gross adjustments at those distances. But if you zoom in at your 100 meters, that's going to be way more accurate than you are if you're at those other distances on the ring for the zoom for your map. Also, if you do keep doing adjustments, then you don't have to do one big adjustment right before the target. So that way you can turn off the autopilot, make your slight adjustment, turn it back on. Then you always have to readjust or look to make sure that you're within your parameters that you set for your altitude and speed. Because when you do those adjustments, things can change. So I found that it was probably better that I should have come from the north or from the west to approach the target, or from the south. But for coming from the east going to the west, it turns out there's quite a bit of cloud cover. So I, rather than give up, I could see the waypoint. I can guesstimate how much I'm going to have to drop distance-wise, just kind of guesstimating. However, at the very last second, I could just barely see the factory. So starting from right there. So you can hear me talking in the background on the clip. So I just dropped those 2 bombs, and I'm going to hit my dive brakes, chop the throttle, and I'm going to dive down since I won't be able to see through the clouds with the bombs hit. So I'm going to dive down and circle the factory, and as long as I do it properly, especially with the dive brake on, I can actually see where the bombs are going to hit. So I'm coming in, going really fast, but I want to make sure I keep that in focus or in my line of sight. And I get turned around here, and it just so happens, boom, boom, both bombs hit. Now those were those little 50-kilogram bombs and not the big ones, so the explosions are really tiny, so I wouldn't have been able to see them from 5K up anyway, unless it was a whole string of them. But 1 or 2, they get lost in the clutter of the buildings and stuff. So anyway, and then since I've got a lot of speed, I'm going to accelerate and go right back up, go back towards those other waypoints I have up there. There's a couple of other factories that I have set, and I'm bombing from different altitudes. So initially I started bombing at lower altitudes, and then I just worked my way up. And since I'm carrying a full load both in the bomb bay and external, I could drop bombs and just drop 1 or 2 and practice getting my bomb sight set up, bombing at different altitudes. Here I am going back towards the eastern factories and giving them a drop from around 2,700 meters. And since I'm at a lower altitude, I'm using the smaller bombs because I can see the smaller bombs. And then I just go back and forth between those 2 factories, one on the coast and this little interior one. And practicing different altitudes, different speeds, make sure that I can get the bomb sight set and do it quickly, and double check, make sure the bomb bay is open, and then practice getting the bombs off at the proper point, which would be the like along the leading edge of the wall. As long as the bombs are landing close enough to the wall to do damage to the wall, and of course inside the wall, then you're going to be getting your full damage to the factory. If you're too far outside of the wall, then you're not going to receive any damage points at all. Right here, I'd be going 3, 2, 1, drop, and drop a couple bombs. And you can use your left control Z to unlock the bomb sight so you can look down. Unfortunately, at lower altitude, you can't see the bombs hit because they're slightly behind you. If you get up to the higher altitudes, like 5K in altitude or 6K, then you can move the bomb sight down like this and see the bombs actually strike the ground. And don't forget to relock the bomb sight, because that'll really mess you up if you try to drop a bomb with the sight in the wrong position. Keep in mind that you're striving to learn to drop from 5K and above. If you're over a factory and you're below 5K, then the factory flak can hit you. So if you got to be bombing from 5K and up. Also, it makes it harder for the enemy planes to find you if you can learn to go 6 or even 7K. Remember that when you're at these higher altitudes, 5,050 meters in this particular case, at a slightly slower speed, you can actually see some of the waypoints because you're dropping the bombs much further out because the bomb hasn't traveled at a greater distance, going about 240 kilometers per hour, that you have to be fairly accurate. And also, don't forget to lock your bomb sight. You notice up here, it just relocks after I hit my left control Z. And it was perfect timing. It was coming up close to dropping my bomb. However, again, coming from the wrong direction, I can't really see the factory, so I'm just guesstimating. You can see, well, for one, the bomb, one of the bombs right there. And so I dropped one a little bit early on purpose. And secondly, I dropped almost right on top of the target. And and at that lower speed, at that altitude, and then as you come down through the clouds, because I had to drop it from further distance out, the first one I dropped early, hit those buildings, and the second one was right on the factory. So essentially, if I decided to drop from the proper direction, either coming from the east or going north to south, so that the clouds would be dissipated over the target, then I would have a better chance of being able to drop the bombs and watch them from the bomb sight from those high altitudes. And since I did come from the wrong direction, I just went ahead and followed the bombs down. This concludes the tutorial on level bombing with the JU88. Thank you for watching the tutorial. Coming up next will be the tutorial on how to dive bomb with the JU88 and using the Stuvi bombsight.